Invest in people, invest in leadership, because at the end of the day, that's value. Build a business that can run without you and you got yourself a good business. And invest in people, because culture at the end of the day doesn't show up on an ROI, but it is really relevant when it comes to a profit and loss.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Barks, founder and CEO of Infinity Home Services. And we are on a special mission to save our communities from unscrupulous contractors. I have a fundamental belief, and I think that scaling a company isn't about shortcuts, and it's not about shiny, flash-in-the-pan sales tactics. It's about what we call playing the long game, which is built on three clear principles of purpose, trust, and clarity, and all with a deep respect for the people who make it all possible. On this show, I'm going to sit down with leaders who are driving our IHS brands forward, along with some other business builders who I think personally, are doing things the right way in their specific industries. And then from time to time, I'm going to go solo. I'm going to share some lessons that I've learned over the last 25 years in the trenches, from handing out my first flyer at 17 years old and starting up, to now being fortunate enough to helm a $500 million business across 25 brands. Now, whether you're a young entrepreneur or a seasoned builder who's done it before, I think this podcast is going to be your playbook for building businesses the right way, which is putting people and customers first and letting the profits follow. All right, today I'm joined with the one and only Jason Couto, founder, president of Couto Construction, based over there in New Bedford, Massachusetts. You know, Jason's built one of the most respected home improvement companies in New England. We're going to talk today a little bit about how he got started, about his dad in the business, about his brother, and about the partnership. And also, we might tell a story or two. Welcome, everybody. Jason Couto.
Thank you. I appreciate being here, Josh. And, I'm always somebody who is extremely passionate about what we do. And thank you for the introduction, by the way. That was quite nice.
And you took me to, what was that? First time I came out there, was it Black Whale? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Black Whale. Yes. It's kind of where we bring a lot of people who come into the area. Yeah.
So I thought I knew what clam chowder was until I actually came out into the Black Whale, and then you introduced me to what it really is. And now I just want to fly out there to have that clam chowder. It's so damn good.
Yeah. We're very blessed to have good seafood here. Having the largest fishing port, and it's cool. Kind of brings you a little bit about that New Bedford feel where you got the fishing dock. So yeah, it's a place we go to pretty frequently. Owners take good care of us as well.
So Jay, I think you've been out there a lot. A lot of people know you, but there's also probably a lot of folks who don't. So maybe tell me a little bit about your background, about Couto Construction, how you got started, what it was like in the early days.
Yeah. So, really simple. Well, Couto Construction, just to kind of correct, I did not found Couto Construction. It was founded by my dad, and it's really a true immigrant story. My dad came to this country as poor can be, flew out here trying to get a life started. My sister at the time and my mom were back there. And look, started at a factory job, but always kind of was involved in businesses and really chased the American dream. And it started off, Couto Construction actually started off him and his nephew together. And this was like back in 87. And like any startup company, they do it with some side work and kind of get started. But the truth is my dad laid the foundation for me and my brother, where most kids grew up and they were excited for summer vacation. Me and my brothers, we dreaded summer vacation because we knew we were going to be working. And, that's kind of where it started. It started really from, ground up and, whether it was after school, my dad would pick us up. It was free labor. Me and my three brothers would be on the job. And, can't always stand for the quality we had at the time when we had three young kids doing a lot of the work, but it's what my father started was really that hustle, that grind, and some of that hard work.
Yeah, and not to give your dad any grief for the level of the business he got. He was a lifestyle business when you guys joined it, and I think you and your brother really turned it into a real company that had employees. And tell us about those early stage and hiring those first few people and kind of getting it off the ground after your dad.
First and foremost, let me just kind of start where, my brother Derek and I, we partnered back in 2008. My brother Derek was kind of running the business. I was young and, we had our differences when we were young, two passionate Portuguese brothers who, had no filter. But, I think the part that I always like to start with is, my dad having a fourth grade education And this is actually the biggest blessing. At the time, we didn't know, but we actually started in debt. When I partnered with my brother Doug, we didn't know at the time, but my father not having an education, he got into a lot of variable rate loans. We were over $500,000 in debt when we didn't even produce $500,000 worth of revenue. And I say the reason is that's a blessing is because when you come from that position where success is not optional, but it's required, right? I mean, raising a young family at the time, that's truly where Couto Construction really earned their stripes. And my brother Derek and I, look, we had no choice but to, travel around, learn from the best of the best organizations, really try and use some of the best practices that we found and try and take those and implement that into our business. And, it was a lot of learning. It was a lot of mistakes, a lot of struggles, but it was that grind and resiliency coming out of debt is what got us to what I think where we are today.
Jay, honestly, I think of all the people that I've ever met, I'm a big fan of Winston Churchill. And he said, continuous improvement, not strength or intelligence, is the key to unlocking one's potential. And when I think about, I didn't graduate college. I started right out of high school. I think about what you and your brother have done and build the business over the last decade. You're just always out there, always trying to learn the next piece of technology, sales process, CSR process, production process. You guys are so inquisitive about what's going to make the company better, what's going to make it more efficient. How do you deliver a better customer experience? And I was shocked by how out there you were early on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, to add to that too, James Clear, where, the idea of the aggregation of marginal gains in his book called The Atomic Habits is, I love that, right? It's finding all those 1% better every day. When we first started, you can find these big improvements, right? You can find these one pieces that can really make a big impact. And then once you scale, it's no longer these big impacts, but it's those successful habits. Those 1% every day is kind of where I live today. But yeah, I always learning, always getting better. Don't be scared to fail. But if you're going to fail forward.
Yeah. So you and Derek have, what would you say, pretty opposite personalities.
We can be, yeah.
You can be both awesome humans, but so you focus on the sales side, you kind of the visionary side of the business. Derek is really the operational side of the business, really putting all the nuts and bolts together. How was that as the business started to scale? You're 5, 6, 7 million, just you two and a few people. Now you're starting to add people, add teams. What was that process like?
Well, first off, I'd like to start off that anybody that's listening to this knows the difficulty that it can be working with family sometimes. And it's we talk about this with some of our other brands who've been together in the family. And I think the biggest thing is, once we realize that our opposites and opinions was actually our greatest strength. You see, I've always been forward going, right? There were opportunities that would come around and I would be like, Derek, I want to go this because I'm always chasing a new cool idea. And, there were situations where he really pushed back. And the time I didn't appreciate it, but, we learned, not only do I have a lot of love, he's my best friend, he's my neighbor, we own properties together and we do everything together and we travel. I'm very fortunate to have my brother and I wouldn't be where I am without him today. But when we really learn to, one, treat the business as it should be when you walk in, it's no longer a brother relationship where you can kind of tell somebody to go fly a kite and not have that filter, as I'm sure everybody has. But you got to have that respect and appreciate one's differences. And, I really learned to appreciate my brother's defensiveness, and what he would tell me in return is like, Jay, I don't agree with this. I would have to come and prove it, right? I'd have to get the research. I'd have to, whether it be through numbers or through, prior situations where it worked out. And look, I mean, he probably helped us avoid some negative situations. In turn, he made me prove the positive ones where, I feel like it's, there's not one personality better than the other. It's that yin and yang. And when we really learn to work together, I think that's where the success really starts to work in our partnership.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think a lot of the stuff that you built in the organization helped you with that. The book Traction or EOS, you guys are implementing that leadership process that you could see clear delineation between what you were doing and what Derek was doing. You could see it in the chart. And I think that's helpful when people know who owns what responsibility.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, that's a great point, Josh. And, we follow the EOS Entrepreneurial Operating System, and I highly recommend that to a lot of newcomers. And I mean, you got to be of a certain size, but the truth is you realize what your roles really are. And it also has a good structure in place to know how those roles work together. And there's never one role more important than the other. Without one, it's, a missing link in the chain. It doesn't work. So, but yeah, I definitely agree. The EOS definitely helps enforce that relationship and that working relationship and structure as well.
So let's talk about, COVID 2020, we passed that. Business is growing. You're hitting 20 million roughly revenue. And you start hearing about private equity out there. Tell the people how you got in a hole with the boss and how that conversation started and where your mind was at.
Yeah, it's funny. So people would ask me like, hey, when did you start considering private equity? The truth is, we did it. I mean, in full honesty, my brother Derek and I at the time, we were working on a buy-sell agreement, getting a life insurance policy and working through those variables. And, I got reached out to probably like so many people do. We're getting all these emails. Hey, we want to buy or we want to partner. And at the time, the truth is it was really a shot in the dark. And I was like, I just wanted to know, what is the evaluation on my business? I was looking to get some free information and get it back because I'm interested to know what is it valued. But and then I like to think of myself as I can be emotional, I can be very passionate, but I also like to think of myself of a logical thinker. And, Josh, not because you're on this call, but I say it all the time, between our conversations, TJ, it got to a point as I went further down and just explored this conversation. I was like, wait a minute, like, this is actually a smart decision. This is a smart business move. This is a smart business play. And when you start to take the emotion and the ego out of it, like, am I going to lose control like so many people do? And that was still there, right? We still had that fear and going through it in the early days, but man, I believe you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take by Wayne Gretzky. I have that up on the wall here somewhere, and it was taking a shot. And then as we had conversation, Josh, you and I, we're friends now. We align on so many levels. Like, we love talking about our kids and some of those passions and how we raise our kids. And, we connected in so many ways. And that relationship kept growing. And this what just kept leading us in the right way. So.
Yeah, I remember the first time I talked to you, it was like, man, this guy is a spark of fire. I mean, this guy wants to grow. He wants to dominate. He wants to be a part of something big. And I think we had your buy-in pretty quick. And I mean, we were totally bought into Couto and your business. We loved it. I think Derek was a little bit of a holdout, right? Derek was like, a little too much change, a little too fast. Let's see what's going on here.
Yeah. I mean, dude, 100%. So me and Derek were complete polar opposites in this position in the beginning. Like, he's like, what are we doing? We never thought about selling. We didn't prepare for selling. And I hate the word selling, right? But like, that's essentially the term that got used when it's, we kept working through and it was like, let's go through the next step. Let's keep going. And as we got closer and closer and the conversations go, we clearly had some questions and need to keep communication. But yes, me and Derek had some very passionate conversations. And Derek was not fully bought in. And for all the reasons that we hear and we know, right? Like, man, if I'm not sure if you like to pivot, but the thing I'd like to pivot is how we can talk about some of the scenarios that you hear out there. I mean,
yeah, it's getting bad.
Scary.
It's getting ugly right now. Yeah.
And the more and more, I mean, I think when we first started, there wasn't as many going on, right? There wasn't as many private equity groups in the roofing space, but I mean, some of my closest friends in this business, they would call me, ask me, and I think for the right reasons, it didn't work out for us because, we wanted to build that relationship and that's what I love about IHS and our position is always, we could be very selective on who we choose because we want the best partners, the right partners, culture being a big part of that. But man, when I see them on the day of closing, two companies together going in on the same deal together, two friends of mine, very close friends, I consider them brothers. And then on the last day, renege on the deal and go to half of what was promised. Half, Josh. Like, that's when people get scared. Plus, owners getting pushed out of the business, all that kind of stuff. Like those are
Oh,
all the fears that
closing the
come into it.
doors. I know 3 businesses that are legacy businesses, 30 years old. I mean, founders built the business, good people, and it simply shut the doors because the profit dropped. It's disgusting. I mean, I think that it's it's sad. This is what
Yeah.
happens when financial engineers get a hold of a business and they don't understand what culture is. We're so fortunate to be backed by 2 really good PE firms that care about people and understand the what it takes to build a real business long term. So,
Yeah.
all right, hey, so we get through the process, right? And we sign the LOI. I finally get Derek on board. He's like, all right, brother, I'm in, man. We're good. Let's do this
We
thing.
got Derek on board. We
Yeah,
had to
we
sell
got
this in all angles.
yeah. Think about even a couple of cocktails, some cigars. We got him over the edge. And
Yeah.
and so we're probably 3/4 due diligence, right? I mean, which for those who've been through it, it's a pain in the butt. I mean, they basically every statement, every piece of paper turned over, every SOP in your business. We got to understand it. But it's a process you have to go through, and really, you emerge the other side a better business owner because you have a better idea of what it, all the processes you have and what it takes. But anyways, we're close to the end, and we had a kind of a snafu, and maybe you
Yeah.
could tell some people about that.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, you know what? At the time, I wasn't in love with the diligence process, as most ain't. But as an investor, like I'm happy with what we do. Like we got to make sure we're partnering, and there's a lot to go in turn. But yeah, so we're going through, and at the same time, we had our real estate transactions that we were in the middle of because we're building a new facility for Couto headquarters, and always very ambitious in our goals. And we had talked about this with the team, but then obviously the attorneys, they're like, they wanted to make sure we had every detail laid out, like what the plan was, what this was going to look like, every detail laid out in this transaction, and we weren't going to be able to make that happen. It wasn't going to happen. But I'm going to tell you, Josh, like, and I say this story because I love it all the time, where this is where, I think the difference comes of you, who we are, what makes us different. Was I'll never forget you getting on the call where the attorneys are like, on both sides, our attorneys understanding, our attorneys telling us like, yeah, like we can't see how they're going to buy into this. And I'm saying, well, I can't provide this. So this deal isn't going to happen. I promised my team we were going to get this building. We've already talked about it. And at the end of the day, we got to be people of integrity, right? There's not just the value that is written on the wall. As leadership, especially, we got to live and breathe by what those values are. And then I won't forget, you got on the wall and everybody were going back and forth. This is to the wire. And you got on the phone. You're like, hey guys, we are buying Couto because we believe in Jason and Derek and they're going to be good partners. And we're going to trust that we're going to do good partners. We're going to move forward with this deal, regardless if we don't have the full lease agreement all detailed out the way that you need it. We're going to move forward. And it was at that time, that plus never reneged, never came back. It was always, we were up and up, straight honest. Everything was logical. It was a big part of us feeling at the scariest time of our life, thinking like, we're getting rid of our baby. Like, are we putting our baby in somebody else's hands? Because that's what we think. We don't know. Obviously, now that I know it's different, I know it's a legacy building. This is how we built scalable businesses. But at the time, thinking we're getting rid of our baby, it was a lot of scared nervousness, not knowing where this. That was one of the parts that really was like, okay, this isn't just spreadsheet jockeys that are running this based off of numbers, and I thought that made a big difference.
Yeah, that I appreciate that, and I had to put an end to that. They're saying you can't see the forest from the trees. Sometimes you get so deep in legal docs and stuff, and people just don't understand it. Go back to first principles. It's like Jason and Derek are going to be our partners. We need a building to expand the business. We want the business to expand. We're not going to have all the build sheets, everything done ahead of time. I don't care. We're done. We're done. Pencils down. We're done. And
yeah, that was it. Done.
Yeah,
it literally
that was it.
We went back and forth for so long, and it was like it was done. I was like,
yeah. I think we closed the deal a week later, and actually not too long after that, before we get into some of the detail, I'll tell a personal story. So maybe probably a couple months later, you invite MJ and my wife and I out to go to some Waterpalooza. What's it called again? The tie-up?
Aquapalooza. Yeah, Aquapalooza. Yeah.
Aquapalooza. So he's like, man, you got to come out to New England. You got to try this clam chowder. We'll do this boat tie up. I'm like, okay, sounds like it could be a good time. So yeah, MJ and I fly out, and Jason's got a nice boat. But what do you say about boats? Something about what's your saying on boats?
Bust out another 1,000, yeah.
Yeah,
Or yeah.
Yeah, bust out another 1,000. Yeah. So we get up to the boat. It's a nice boat. You probably take it out a couple times a year. So it's always like the first time you take it out is the first time, sitting for a while. And it's not too far away, but we get in the boat. We've got some, it's really nice. We got food, we got some drinks, and we start heading to the tie-off spot. And the boat won't come up on plane. It's, you've got to just pegged, and the thing is just kind of, dying in the water, and we can't figure out what's going on. And finally, we're like, maybe the props are just kind of gnarled up with barnacles. And so I'll never forget it. You jump into the water, and there's these boats just zipping by.
Wake coming everywhere.
Yeah, it's in the ocean. I mean, the wake is going like this, and you're diving out of the boat, and you're trying to scrape the barnacles off the props.
Yeah,
coming up, hands are bleeding. I'm like, Jay, man, let's just trickle in there. We'll get there in no time. And you're just like, no, I'm getting these barnacles off. Yeah, it was such a good time. Sure. I think that was an awesome start to our friendship, and we've been good friends ever since. So appreciate you.
Yeah, man, same here, buddy.
So business, right? So we close the deal, and things start going. Maybe talk about some things that maybe you didn't expect, or things that might be different, or with the IHS partnership.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when we first get partnered up, it's always that everybody always has that fear of, is this going to be a takeover? Did I just acquire a boss? Is that what it is? And I can honestly say that that's probably the farthest from the truth. But I also think this is what makes IHS different. I think this is what makes Infinity Home Services different is first and foremost, we need to speak the same language. And Josh, that I was full neck deep in building out this new CRM, that I was all gun ho. I thought this was going to be my next innovation. And look, man, it wasn't a requirement. It was suggestion. And I think that's the biggest part of this that I want to say is, we're never force fed in any situation. I think it's always like, hey, like, here's suggested, here's what we need to do. And look, I'm an investor, right? And I want what's best for the investment. I buy in, we have a conversation, I want to buy into I want this investment to grow. So, I think that's a big part of it, and for me, I think there's so much doubt that we have when we first get into this is, like I said, are we acquiring a boss? But the truth is, we really still have that autonomy as one, but we still have the ability to be who we are in our market, right? It's here's some ideas. I run, and it's funny, especially you, Josh, every time I'm telling you, hey, Josh, I got an idea, you're like, perfect, run with it. Yeah, go. Like there's never a situation that it's like, no, you don't want to do. It's always, dude, I think it's a great idea. Go. And I think that's what makes us a little bit differently where, you think we have these crazy guardrails in place, but I think when you make the right decisions and you're a good partner and you think about it the right way, I don't think there's any issues.
So speaking about partnerships, one of the things that, again, unique about IHS, 25 brands, 25 different entrepreneurs leading these businesses. Who have you kind of taken to the most of all the BPs, would you say?
Oh, man, you're putting me on the spot here now.
Maybe that's a bad thing.
Yeah. I love them. VPC. Man, I love all of them. And I'm not gonna lie, like, when we, there was this pinnacle moment that we had when, we had Steve Stagner come in that meeting when we were in Vegas, and it was like,
yeah,
man, I left there so juiced. I mean,
that mission, vision, value. Yep.
Yeah, we came there as like 7 different organizations at the time. Right. And it was a 7 different, but like anything in the beginning, right? Like we're working through the bumps. We're kind of working through the kinks and whatnot. But man, when we left there, I left like I was there like with my brothers. I feel like we just joined. I know you're a Marine. I didn't serve, but I felt like I was with my band of brothers. Like we left there so close, so tight. And, I think that's the part where I can't say, is there one, is there one brand president that I admire over another? I mean, I wouldn't say that because I love everybody, equally. They're all my friends, but some I do speak to just because um, out of just kind of habit and just, we build a little bit strong relationships, but I wouldn't say there's one over another. I mean, I don't want anybody to be upset with me. So no favorites.
What's interesting, a lot of the PE firms followed in IHS's footsteps when we became so successful. And they're all like, hey, we want to be a residential retail strategy, take some chips off the table, share best practices. And that whole share best practices things I'm hearing doesn't often get done. In fact, it's kind of sad. I hear in a lot of other strategies that the leaders of the founders of the businesses don't even talk to each other. They don't know each other. They don't know each other's numbers. And we just have this really transparent organization where you have cell phone numbers of everybody across the platform. We have meetings, and all of our because we're all partners, true equity partners. Everything is shared, and so you have everybody's financials. And I think it creates this competitive juices, but it also lets you go out and understand maybe the next moves you might want to make based on somebody who might be just a bit bigger, scaling a bit faster in different areas of the business. So I love that part. What else is on your mind, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to tell you, I mean, just to kind of add to a little bit of what you did. So, man, I got to tell you, this is probably some of the best parts about this partnership, I think, is, we have new hires, right? And especially if you got a new position. Like I'm going to tell you, like to add on to what you said, we added on positions because we seen positions successful at another brand. And it doesn't always necessarily mean that they're bigger than us. It just means that they had a part of their business that was successful. And I'm going to tell you, I can call any one of my brand presidents, and not just the brand presidents, their leadership team beneath them, anybody even through the organization, everybody is an open book, right? There is no, and I want to add to that open book piece because I think this is something that I want to add on to, but not to jump off because I typically do. But I can have any one of my team members call anybody and say, hey, ask them how they do things. So it's almost, you have people, you can, you don't have to be the only one training your people. We got resources, we got other, and not just other brands, not just talking, and I'm not talking just, about the other brands. We also have obviously our IHS leadership team that is there to support us. But I know I can call, I mean, whether it's one brand or another that I have, and I'm like, hey, how are you doing this? Can we talk through this? Whether it's Luke Skywalker and Adam Resnick, where we've had multiple calls, Josh and Premier, where they're big in Storm. And it's these other organizations that I can call and be like, hey, how do you handle this? What do you do in this situation? And you don't have to follow every single thing to a T. You can take with it and make the most out of it that works inside of your processes, right? Because we all can operate a little bit differently. But I also want to say that's also what's really different. I used to go to all these conferences, as you know, Josh. I made a lot of friends in this business. I go to a lot of conferences. I make friends. I'm, everywhere. But I can honestly say it's a lot different when you see everything behind the curtain. You sometimes can go to these conferences and you can have some of these, and I want to say friends or other people in the organization, and you hear them talk about how this works great, 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 great. And then you eventually hear through the grapevine, or you eventually learn, like, wait a minute, I don't know if this is exactly the advice that I want to be getting because, everybody's, yeah, man, you put in 20% in EBITDA to the bottom line, and you find out you're like,
wait, Jason, are you saying that everybody who speaks at a conference hasn't built a great business and doesn't live by all the values that they espouse?
Shocking, right? But yes, I'm exactly saying that. And I will also say, I mean this in all due respect, and I'm not saying this to all of them out there, but it also boggles my mind some of the influencers in this business that are out there influencing others that I've known throughout the years. And I question, like, is this really the right resource to be giving out some information? And unfortunately, some of these businesses are going and learning. In this partnership, the people I call, I can see everything behind the curtain. I know what their P&Ls look like. I know how they operate in their business. So I have a true picture of what's working and not.
So you and I reach success just a little bit differently. I have a poster on behind that sat behind me forever that said "Work hard in silence and let your success be the noise." Never went to a conference, a single one. Built a business because we were partnering. Because I had started this kind of IHS, I had to go out there and be a little more public, and so that was my entrance into the speaking realm and seeing who's out there. And it really not to throw shade on. There are a lot of good folks who are dedicating their time and energy to help young entrepreneurs build good businesses and speak on behalf of good principles. Traction being one, EOS system,
Yeah.
some sales philosophy and process. Adam Bensman's a great guy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to learn, but there also
Of
are
course.
some gurus who really mislead people. And I was at and I'm gonna tell a very brief story, but I was introduced to a person who was a speaker on the circuit. And I had dinner with them and I started asking more detailed questions. And it was all kind of these tropes. There was no real underlying messaging. And I finally asked, I'm like, have you built a business before? Or are these just all kind of theories? And apparently the person had told me that they had built a fantastic business. And it was, I learned this term for the first time ever, revenue neutral. And I went back into the back of my brain. I'm like, what does revenue neutral mean? It seems to me like that there's no revenue.
I'm
And
interested. What is revenue neutral?
that's exactly what it meant. The company has no revenue. And I'm like, well, then you don't have a company. So yeah. So
Yeah.
that was a big like, oh man. And this person is speaking on stage. It was, and not anymore. I don't think. I think the cat was let out of the bag. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. But here, to your point, I guess go back to your point. Here, it's you can see what somebody else is doing. You can
Yeah.
see it in their numbers, and you could
Yep.
call them and fly and go to their shop and watch
Yep.
the people doing the work. And it's not song and dance; it's real,
No.
practical
And
application. Yeah,
and I'm going to tell you, and it's encouraged, right? It's encouraged. What I mean by that is, like that is what we try and speak about, right? So anytime somebody calls me, says, "Hey, could I talk to so," and everybody's super respectful too. They're like, "Hey, maybe can you put me in contact with your canvassing manager?" Sure. Hey, here he is, right? We all have these little nuances or these little tweaks that, and look, markets make a difference, right? Where you are, and sometimes it's just kind of how you built your culture. And I love the fact that we still have that, autonomy, but I mean, I think it's just, I think what we have here, and I say we, because I feel so a part of this in every which way, I feel like we got something great. And I think it's just very something different too, compared to like what we hear out there. I got a lot of friends in this business. I have, that I try to, lean them into, considering IHS, and for whatever reason, maybe they make another decision, and that's okay. Like, hey, it's not for everybody. We can't have everybody. Um, but I hear some of what goes on, and I'm just happy that I am where I am.
yeah. And I'm glad. I'm glad for our friendship, and I'm glad you're experiencing the business that way. It does come at the risk of sounding hubris. It comes from me, and it comes from on high. I started a business from scratch. I know what it takes to build one. I built it over a lot of years. We built a great business in Milwaukee, and I do truly believe, though, in decentralized authority. I believe that pushing the decision making down closest to the information is the right way to do business. Even though I don't at all believe that this central brain trust that sits in an ivory tower can create all the best operating systems and then just force those down through the brands and different geographies, different humans. I think that's a terrible way to operate the business, and it's not how we do it. And so I'm glad that that's landing well at the brands, and that you're still able to explore and do things that you want to do to make the company great. And that's the whole idea behind what we're building. What's next, Jace? What else are we doing?
Man,
Keep growing. You guys are
kicking
growing, man.
that.
You're up, what, 30% this year? You guys are killing it.
Yeah, 30% this year, is we're happy, up revenue, up bookings is up 30 something percent this year. And yeah, it's like anything else, it's and I want to add to this because we took, when we jumped in full for head first. And and I just want to be transparent with this piece where it's not all, I don't want to make this all sunshine and rainbows, right? And you and I, we talk about this, and you give me the ability to make the decisions that I wish. Like, here's what we have, take it, leave it. And the truth is we jumped head in over in all the software and all we could. CRM was great, Zoho, but it's all a learning curve. So I'm going to tell you where we finally got our rhythm with all the change management that we went through. And again, because we chose to, but I feel like, we're finally back in that flow of utilizing everything that we have efficiently. And it's been proven out to be successful, considering the fact that, the majority of the economy and some of the people in our area are pretty much flat. I feel pretty happy the fact that we've had some growth.
Yeah. You guys have been doing an incredible job. Change management's real. And oftentimes I still hear people, PE pitches saying nothing will change. And it's like, it's crazy. Think about it. When my business was doing $20 million, it changed a whole lot when it went to 30.
Of course.
And it changed a whole lot when it went to 40. And if you're not changing, you're dying. And so things are going to change. It's going to change under a different methodology. So if there's Jason, if there's any practical takeaways you'd have, anything you want to share with the audience that you think is important?
I always have a lot that I could say, but I'll keep it real simple. I keep it real brief. You said something that I think is really important, which is, you got two things that are happening in any business. And this isn't just business, this is life. Either you're growing or you're dying. You're never maintaining. So if you're not working and getting yourself, if you're not suffering the pain of discipline, you're going to suffer the pain of regret, right? So that's one. And I would say if I were to go back to anybody, or even I could go back to myself years ago, considering something like this, I'm not saying jump head first, do your due diligence, but take the shot. Anybody who's maybe considering about doing this in the future, I will say, invest in people. If you can't leave your organization for 2 weeks because everything revolves around you, you're not running a successful business. So invest in people, invest in leadership, because at the end of the day, that's value. That's value to you. That's value to, I think, us as an organization is, build a business that can run without you, and you got yourself a good business. And invest in the people, because culture at the end of the day doesn't show up on an ROI, but it is really relevant when it comes to a profit and loss. Yeah,
I think wiser words were not spoken, Jason. Man, I really appreciate sharing the story with the team here, and for what you're doing over at Couto, you and Derek, and for really helping every day to save our communities from unscrupulous contractors, my friend. So thanks for taking time out of the day. Appreciate you.
Got it, man. Appreciate being here. This was fun.
All right. We'll talk soon, man. Hey, guys. I hope you got to see just how passionate and grateful Jason is about his business and just about life in general. It reminds me of Marcus Aurelius' quote, "When you rise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, just to breathe, to think, to enjoy, and to love." It's interesting. Gratitude is one of those things in life that you can give away without losing anything. They win and you win, and really in more ways than you know. I would encourage you all today to go out and find somebody on your team, maybe somebody who has been underappreciated, and go tell them exactly how you feel. You might be surprised how it makes you feel. Until next time.